Brands Hatch. As an official support race to the A1GP, this is one of the busiest events in the GT Cup calendar. We've got brand new drivers, several new GT cars and a massive crowd of motorsport fans. Everything you need for a fantastic weekend's racing. Here with Andy Ruan, your second season in GT Cup, but you've got a new car.
I had a little bit of an accident with the 360, and in fact I turned it into a 180. I think I split it in two, hitting a tyre wall a bit quickly. So had an opportunity to change and decided to go with the 997.
And how are you finding it?
It's a lot. I find it a lot more difficult to drive. It's a completely different drive with the 360. With the Ferraris in general, we had a few driver aids such as ABS. We had paddle shift. This is a little bit more of a workout with the sequential box and heel and towing, so there's a lot more going on, but I am really enjoying the car, really enjoying it.
Here with Sarah Bennett-Baggs, you're new to GT Cup this season and with the Aston Martin. What kind of appealed to you about coming to GT Cup?
It's a brilliantly run series, it's very well organised, and the cars, it's an exciting grid. I've been told it's not too door banging, and it's very friendly, so it's a great thing to do.
And you've come from a Porsche background. How is it being in the Aston now?
Obviously a million miles from my 150 brake horsepower Porsche 911, but all the same rules apply, so it's not been too much of a problem.
I'm here with Michelangelo. You're here representing Italy in a very British Lotus. How are you enjoying GT Cup so far?
I come here because I think it's a good championship. Many cars, the class are very. The ballast between the class are very correct. It's a good championship. I have enjoyed the first race in Silverstone, and now try to do the best for this weekend.
Will we be seeing you at Snetterton?
Yes, we will. I should be in Snetterton and hope without problem.
Here with Mike Saunders in the new TVR Cerberus, it's a new mark to GTs, and you're new as well.
Yeah.
How are you finding it?
It's very different from what we're used to. Obviously, with TVR racing, we're the only people without a truck. So, it's very different from what we're used to. The racing's a lot harder, but it's great. It's really good fun.
How does the TVR feel on Brands?
I don't know. Scary, I suppose, is the word. As you sort of go through corners, you're not sure what it's going to do next, as you're going sideways or, braking, locking a wheel up, etc. Brands is a great track. I love Brands. I've done the Indy track many times, but it's the first time we've had a race on the Grand Prix track, so it's all new for me.
There's an impressive 40 cars starting race one. As the drivers head round for the rolling start, let's take a look at the grid.
So Glyn Geddy, the man that will start on pole position with the Team Parker Racing Run Porsche, and with him at the front of the grid is Mike Gardner, the man that won the opening round of GT Cup. Paul Hogarth is on the second row with Peter Selden's BMW. Barry White's going to be a man to watch in the yellow Aston Martin starting on the third row, and lower down the order, 31 Michael Simons is another driver worth keeping an eye on. So too Fiona James, who starts 16th in the In2 Racing Run car. Lower back on the grid, Richard Denny impressed at Silverstone in his first races. Barclay Dougal's bewinged BMW, always a spectacular car. And the Sarah Bennett-Baggs with her Group 4 spec, Aston Martin N24 lower down the order. Chris Scragg, the local hotelier from Tunbridge Wells, starts 33rd. The much-travelled David Bottrell is 34th on the grid. And David Hathaway, with his Ferrari 360 Challenge, is 40th and last. As we get ready then for the first of two GT Cup races here at Brands Hatch on the fabulous Grand Prix circuit. This promises to be quite a spectacle as the cars now make their way down towards Clark Curve. So then, Porsche on pole position for Glyn Geddy, the Viper of Mike Gardner lining up alongside him, then the symphonic sounding Lamborghini Gallardo on the second row of the grid with the vastly experienced Peter Selden lining up alongside him in the BMW. The race about to get underway then as the pace car as it is peels into the pit pit lane. The lights on red will be out in a moment to get the race underway. Glyn Geddy steals a march on everybody as they go down towards paddock for the first time. You're on board with Colin Broster as the field files its way down towards paddock for the first time. £1 million grid, if you add up all the relative values of these mouth-watering sports cars, runs up towards Druids for the first time, and it looks as though Glyn Geddy has managed to make a break. He has indeed. He leads from Mike Gardner in second place. In third it's Paul Hogarth, in fourth is Peter Selden, fifth is Barry White, and then in seventh place you've got Mike Donovan, the man that won the second race at Silverstone in the Porsche, and he's looking to gain ground as well as the cars make the run along Cooper Straight for the first time, heading up towards Surtees, and then they're going to turn onto the Grand Prix loop. Michael Saunders there, tucked up behind Barry White in the Aston Martin. And one of the beauties of GT Cup and GT racing in general isn't just the variety of shapes and sizes, it's also the variety of sounds that the cars make as well. But it's that very distinctive Porsche engine note blazing a trail up front at the moment. Glyn Geddy leads as they turn their way from Hawthorne up towards Westfield for the first time. Stephen Taylor goes through with his Lotus Exige, and that car might be a bit breathless on the long straights here, but through the corners it's going to be very competitive indeed. A very nimble car that. He's had lots of success with it in the past. He's ahead of Leon Price as they go towards Westfield for the first time. Race leaders coming out of Sheen Curve up towards Stirlings, and right the way through the field there are battles. Colin Simpson goes through with a venerable Marcos Mantis. That's a car that traces its origins in one make racing back at least a decade. He's ahead of Fiona James there in the Ginetta, and the cars sprint their way through Clark Curve for the first time. Then the race leaders coming up towards the end of lap one as BMWs take on Porsches. Glyn Geddy, the race leader, is building the gap now. Over in second place, Mike Gardner. Glyn Geddy, who's also racing this year in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB, so he's doing lots of Porsche racing and he's getting quicker and quicker all the time, leads the way. Fights between Ferraris lower down the order. Porsche versus BMW as they go through. Barclay Dougall, one of the drivers with the B-Wing BMW. You've also got Michael Simons going well, and Peter Selden is the best of the BM drivers at the moment. He runs up front as Michael Simons heads towards us, up towards Druids. Fiona James goes through in the Ginetta, right on the tail of Colin Simpson. Meantime, Peter Selden looking to try to find a way past Paul Hogarth in the Lamborghini. On board with Selden through Surtees. Lamborghini just ahead of us. Not only is Peter trying to find a way past Paul Hogarth, but also the Lamborghini is virtually on the tail now of the Viper of Mike Gardner. This is second, third and fourth, heading down towards Hawthorns. On board with Selden, great noise from the BMW as he turns now into the right-hander. Paul Hogarth staying ahead of him for the moment, and if anything in a straight line, not surprisingly, 8 litres of Viper power pulls it clear. That means that Mike Gardner is just edging away a little bit from Paul Hogarth. Peter Selden there in fourth place, falling back a touch, and in fifth place is the Aston Martin in the hands of Barry White. He's going well at the moment. Michael Saunders is behind him in the TVR. Then Mike Donovan, another hugely experienced driver, going through in the Porsche. Mike it was that won the second race at Silverstone, but he's being a little bit outpaced here at the moment. Down towards Clark Curve they go, through the right-hander, and then up towards the start and finish line. The race leaders go through, but all the while now Glyn Geddy is building this advantage over Mike Gardner in second place. In third, Paul Hogarth in the Lamborghini that looks to try to make a run on the way up towards Druids. The gap between second and third coming down a touch as Stephen Taylor goes through in the Lotus. Colin Simpson's Marcos Mantis rumbles by. Michael Simons also in the BMW gains ground a little bit as there Andy Ruan muscles his way through on the inside up at Druids, then runs wide, and that's going to cost him places. Ian Hartley's white Ferrari getting embroiled in that. Sarah Bennett Baggs has had a spin down at Clark Curve. It's all happening, but you can see now that Andy Ruan's Porsche has suffered damage and there's bodywork there, I think, fouling against a tyre. Can he limp it round? He's going to do a full lap on this. In fact, he's not just fouling, the tyre has gone down, so that bit of contact up at Druids gives him a punctured front left, and it rather looks as though retirement is about to beckon for the Porsche. The car that he shares with Simon Leith, the two of them doing the driving this weekend, one race each, and that car is going to have to limp off the road, I think. Now this is Matt Cumming making a move on the inside of Sarah Bennett Baggs, in case of coming up the inside, but I'm afraid contact was the result. The Aston Martin spins, and the Lotus and Ferrari very lucky to get through the narrowest of gaps and emerge unscathed. Sarah rejoins, albeit a few places lost, lots of time lost as well, but the car still going strong. The leader has gone by. Now this is the fight for second. Viper, Lamborghini, BMW, over the line they go. Paul Hogarth, it is them, trying to do something about the second place Viper as the leader spins. Glyn Geddy has lost it going through paddock. The car has not yet rejoined, and just looking at it, it looks as though he'd had a punctured tyre as well. Yes, he has. You can see the tyre flopping around them. It's the left rear and what was a perfectly inflated tyre earlier has now gone all a bit flaccid. He pulls the car off the road. Glyn Geddy's race is run, and the Porsche, I'm afraid to say, having been dominating early on, is going no further, and that now means that Mike Gardner leads the way. In fact, the tyre had gone down, causing the spin rather than being a result of spinning through the gravel, and a very frustrated Glyn Geddy trudges away. That race was his, and that punctured tyre, I'm afraid, means he's a retirement. It also means that we have a very different look to the front, whereas before it was one Porsche out on its own. Now we have a three-way fight for leadership. It's between the Dodge Viper, the Lamborghini Gallardo, and then the Bewing BMW that you're on board with, the Peter Selden, as Paul Hogarth lunges up the inside and goes through. That was a very brave move. Mike Gardner gave him just enough racing room, and Paul Hogarth breathed in, squeezes by. Selden tries to level with Gardner, coming down towards Clark Curve. The BMW tucked up behind the Viper. They're all being caught by Barry White's Aston Martin, and that's the replay of Paul Hogarth diving up the inside at Stirling's and very bravely taking over the race lead. Now, the Lamborghini Gallardo, released from behind the Viper, is pulling away, and Mike Gardner is going to have to stick his elbows out here, I think, to keep everybody else behind him. It's Dodge Viper Competition Coupe versus BMW M3. Down they come towards Graham Hill Bend. And because they're squabbling and holding one another up now, they're being caught by Barry White in the Aston Martin, and then Michael Saunders in the TVR. Peter Selden makes a move on the inside, trying to find a way through to second place. Tremendous battle going on for second here at Brands Hatch. It's the third race in GT Cup. It's being led by Paul Hogarth. There's action aplenty behind, and there's more to come right after the break. Welcome back to Brands Hatch, the GT Cup here in full swing. We've lost the early race leader, Glyn Geddy, a punctured tyre causing him to spin at Paddock Hill Bend. And the new race leader is Paul Hogarth in the Lamborghini Gallardo, who is now breaking clear of a very fierce fight for second place. Here it is between Mike Gardner in the track-filling Viper, and right up behind him, Peter Selden in the BMW. The pair of them are being caught now as well by Barry White with the yellow Aston Martin, and right the way around the Grand Prix circuit there are battles raging on. Ian Hartley's Ferrari here, just ahead of Lashes Varga with the Team RPM run Viper. The Viper very good in a straight line when it has enough room to stretch its legs through the corners. The Ferrari here, slightly more nimble car, has the advantage. Lower down the order, just turning through Stirling's Michael Simons there, trying to gain ground. Ahead of him, you can see it's the Marcos in the hands of Colin Simpson, but also this is the battle for second, and it's now a four-way fight. It could even become five-way before much longer, because in the background the Porsche of Mike Donovan is inching up onto the tail of them as well. Down to Graham Hill Bend, Mike Gardner keeps the place, and this, remember, is the fight for second. Paul Hogarth has checked out up front as now Michael Saunders makes his move on the inside of Barry White's Aston Martin. The two yellow perils trade the place. TVR goes ahead of the Aston Martin. Gardner still second, but look at the Porsche in the background. Mike Donovan, hugely experienced racer, got as far as Class B of the British Formula 3 Championship many years ago. He's now closing on that fight ahead. George Brewster's Porsche goes through, having got itself ahead now. Look at Colin Simpson's Marcos. Michael Simons next up with the BMW as they make the run down towards Hawthorns. The Porsche, I suspect, is going to just edge away. Colin Simpson on the back foot a little bit to try to keep the BM behind him. Simons, who's raced that car in Brit Car events as well, knows his way around the Grand Prix circuit pretty well. For second place, Mike Gardner is having to work overtime now, not only to keep Peter Selden at bay, but also Michael Saunders, who is getting better and better. The TVR tries to go around the outside there, but it doesn't quite pay off for him. Down to Graham Hill Bend they come. Barry White is being dropped in the background, and he's now being caught, in fact, by the Porsche and Mike Donovan, and those two running almost together as they sprint along Cooper Straight up towards Surtees. Selden trying to attack and defend at the same time now. Out of Surtees onto this long, fast straight that takes them down towards Hawthorns, and Peter Selden, rather than attack the Viper, is having to make that BMW very wide indeed to keep Michael Saunders at bay. They're heading down towards the right at Hawthorns as there Fiona James scrabbles by on the inside, and the TVR goes ahead of Colin Simpson. Ginetta versus Marcos, two British sports car makes at play. But Colin Simpson's Marcos, I'm afraid, is falling further and further down the order, but he tries to come back at the Ginetta. Look, the G50, the 3.5 litre car, and succeeds in so doing. The Marcos, with a little bit more grunt, goes through on the inside and retakes the place. This is the beauty of GT Cup. Cars running in four different groups, dependent upon the speed of the car, the power of the car, the weight of the car, and it all lends itself to very good racing. And this, in Group 4, contact between Will Goff and Matt Cumming. We've already seen Matt have one skirmish with an Aston Martin. Sarah Bennett Bagg's car earlier on. There, another one over at Westfield. leading group goes through, now well in and among the traffic, just lapping the White Lotus and Michelangelo Segatori, and Mike Donovan tries to lunge up the inside there. He goes ahead of Barry White's Aston Martin. Michael Saunders goes around the outside of Sarah Bennett Baggs' Aston. Up the inside now, tries to go Mike Donovan. All these back markers, of course, having their own race, their own battle, and way up onto the curb on the inside there. Michael Saunders gets squeezed rather. That was David Hathaway, who was doing his best to keep out of the way, had to claim the line from the corner sooner or later, and that didn't do Michael Saunders any favours, but actually he's not lost that much time by it. Mike Gardner is still second then in the Viper. In third place, it's still Peter Selden in the BM, and Michael Saunders going with them in the TVR there. The gap is a wide one between him and Barry White. Then Mike Donovan in number 49 Porsche next up. Turn through Surtees, speed building now as they drop downhill towards Hawthorns, and this a replay of the leading group and the back markers all descending on Druids. David Hathaway there, look, turns into the corner. Michael Saunders was committed to the inside line, uses lots and lots of curb, but thankfully gets through unscathed. Michelangelo Segatori's Lotus turning its way then now up through Westfield. Jeff Ledley's Ferrari is about to put a lap on the little White Lotus as he scuttles up the inside there. Headlights on as Ledley tries to work his way through the traffic here. Another couple of back markers, one of which is the Ferrari of David Hathaway, also the Aston Martin after its spin, Sarah Bennett Baggs. Jeff Ledley at the moment going extremely well in Group 2 in that Ferrari. Could well be on for a class win if his pace carries on like this, as Mike Gardner turns through paddock. Peter Selden has a sniff at the inside line there, thinks better of it. He's got to be so careful not to leave that door open and give Michael Saunders a chance. That Viper is a very powerful car and it's a very wide car, and although Mike Gardner may not be leading this race, he knows exactly how to defend for second position. Drop downhill now towards Graham Hill. Ben Selden thinks about the inside. Peter Selden has done a lot of racing over the years in things like the BMW Challenge. He's raced in the Daytona 24 Hours. He's done quite a bit of brick car racing. Also races in historic BMWs as well these days, and as they turn their way onto the Grand Prix loop, he is under real pressure. Peter Selden trying to attack and defend at the same time. Sarah Bennett Baggs has had her second spin of the race, rejoining, gets the somewhat valuable Aston Martin out of harm's way. The N24, so tight numbered because it was designed for the Nürburgring 24-hour race. GT4 spec Aston, and that's a replay of the end of the spin. It looked as though Sarah just got it wrong under braking, and there's a big cloud of dust there. Try and peer through it and find out who has gone off, but it's a very, very big dust storm, and it starts to fade, and I'm trying to work out the shape of the car. Now there you can see Mike Gardner. Michael Saunders makes a move on the inside of him. There's no sign in that group of Peter Selden, as off the road goes Mike Donovan. Now let's have a look and see whether the shuffle has taken place. Michael Saunders goes ahead of Mike Gardner. Barry White tries to go around the outside as well, but I've got a horrible feeling it might be Peter Selden that has gone missing from that group, because now as they come over the line, the Viper comes through, the Aston Martin is there, the TVR we know about. Michael Saunders doing a great job here just ahead of them. It is Peter Selden. The BMW has spun, and that's Westfield, and he's in the gravel, and here is how it all happened. He made the run on the inside, coming out of the right-hander of Hawthorn, was ahead, arrives at Westfield a little bit too quickly, tries to brake, slows the car down as best he can, at the back tries to overtake the front, it loops itself round, and at very high speed, plunges off into the gravel bed. And a very dusty BMW M3 sits on the gravel and is going no further. That's going to take some shifting from there because it's a fairly heavy car. So up front, it is Paul Hogarth then, who leads the way. Remember, the Lamborghini, rather dominant, as the much-travelled David Bottrell is the next car for Mike Gardner to lap, and Mike slams the headlights on to warn the traffic of his progress. Second, they're just getting out of shot, the yellow TVR of Michael Saunders. There, third now, is Mike Gardner. And they're going up towards Westfield, yellow flag at the corner, and that's the reason why, because not only is Peter Selden's BMW there, but the snatch vehicle is there trying to retrieve it. On board with Peter Selden. This is what went wrong. Goes down a gear, turns in, just loses the back, and round it goes. And as soon as the back stepped away, the rear-wheel drive car losing traction, Peter was a passenger. Barry White tries to go through on the inside, but with that yellow flag being waved to say no overtaking, that is not an option for him. A bit of a disappointment though. The Viper certainly is fading as the race has worn on. Whether it's brake related, whether it's something more sinister than that, we don't know, but certainly a car that ran so strongly in the opening race at Silverstone is falling further and further away from the race leaders here. Out of Stirling's, down towards Clark Curve. That's the man in second place now. Michael Saunders going great guns. Paul Hogarth continuing to lead in a Lamborghini Gallardo. And down the pit lane is coming Mike Donovan's Porsche. That had just really latched on to the back of that leading group. Now it has a problem as well. It's going to be a very jumbled order come the end of the race as the next scrap makes its way up towards the line. Now look, Barry White in the Aston Martin on the back of the Dodge Viper, and Mike Gardner that slows as well. Mike Gardner has got a problem. Barry White goes through. Well, we're suggesting that the Viper may have lost pace. Now it's lost everything. Mike Gardner parks the car just after the start and finish line on the run towards paddock, and the red flag is being shown. Race is being stopped, and this, I suspect, is because they just can't shift that BMW safely up at Westfield, and so a red flag means that the race is being stopped. And looking at the fact that they had done 11 laps, it is not, I don't think, going to be restarted. It confirms, therefore, a race win for Paul Hogarth. What we need to find out is whether Mike Gardner is going to stay in the results, given that the Dodge Viper pulled off just before the red flag. And normally the rules say you have to be still travelling when the red flag is shown to be in the results. Let's find out. Confirmation that Paul Hogarth is indeed the race winner. Michael Saunders second, and Mike Gardner is classified third, ahead of Barry White fourth, Jeff Ledley fifth to win Group 2 in the Ferrari, ahead of Ian Hartley. Lassos Vargas seventh, and Bob Lyons is in eighth position. In Group 3, it's Marco Pullen that wins from Colin Broster and Michael Simons. Will Goff is victorious in Group 4, ahead of Chris Scragg and Matt Cummings. Group 2, Jeff Ledley the winner, ahead of Ian Hartley and Bob Lyons. And Hogarth, Saunders and Mike Gardner, the top three in Group 1. So, with a red flag to stop the race, the drivers make their way to the podium, and a very happy Paul Hogarth can celebrate a race win here at Brands Hatch in the GT Cup. Honours in Group 2 going the way of Jeff Ledley with his Ferrari. The Group 3 winner, making his way onto the podium, is Marco Pullen. Group 4 is going to be won by the Aston Martin driver Will Goff, who in turn makes his way out onto the podium for the celebrations.
Well, Goff, you're making a habit of this, aren't you? Another win for you.
I know, it's a second race, second win. It's brilliant. Good start again. So let's hope tomorrow is exactly the same.
You had a fantastic dice out there at one point. How was that?
Yeah, the start was quite hairy because I qualified quite well and I was up mid-pack, you know, up and amongst the Class 3 guys. So suddenly, you know, I got Porsches and Ferraris all over me.
Marco Pullen, class winner. You must be really pleased with that.
Yeah, unbelievable result, really. We came here not expecting to be in the top 5 in our class and qualified first in class and managed to drive away from the start. So very lucky, very good weekend.
Jeff Ledley, winner of Group 2. You must be absolutely thrilled with that result.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. First win for our new race team, and we got a first and second, so that was just a great result. And it's been a fantastic circuit to have a race on. It's brilliant fun.
The Ferrari feel good this weekend?
Yeah, beautifully balanced. The team have done a lot of work. It's set up beautifully, really easy to drive. Very good.
Paul Hogarth, after disappointment at Silverstone, this must feel real good just to get the win in the Lamborghini.
Yeah, it is. Silverstone wasn't so good, and it sort of leaves you with a nasty feeling for a couple of weeks till you get a chance to put it right. So it's fantastic to be back, and really, really enjoyed the race. Magnificent.
And talk us through that move that got the lead for you.
Yeah, it was a bit bold, but I was sort of with him a few times under braking, and I just thought I had to do something quite severe to get through, because the Viper's got a lot of power, and I just knew I had to get him under braking, and that was the good spot to do it.
So that brings us to the end of our coverage from the A1GP meeting here at Brands Hatch. Make sure you join us next time when we'll be out at Snetterton.